leaders optimize their budget and invest in the right programs?
One of the things that I like to focus on is thinking about like the bigger picture, right? Like we talked about
Mm-hmm.
this the first episode. What is the business goal? Like what
Mm-hmm.
can do we understand what the business goal is? And then what things, if anything, are either adding value or contributing to that goal? And then thinking about the things from a really nerdy tech perspective. What kind of technical debt? What things are not adding value? Meaning
Mm-hmm.
utilize tool utilization. Are we using everything in our stack? Is it being utilized properly? But then, like looking at that reporting and then the things that are adding value, what channels are working, what channels are not working, what should we experiment with, what should we double down on, and so really making sure that all our data is in check and really making sure that we are aligned with the overall business objectives and goals to understand, hey, where are we trying to go this year? And then looking in the mirror and being like, what are we doing? What do we have within the organization that is contributing to that goal or detracting from it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how you can make business impact is if you can actually show your strategy and your investment strategy laddering up to the big corporate goals.
If you think really strategic and if you're sort of laddering up to like the ELT team and like thinking
Hmm.
about planning, think about overall business objectives, I think that buys you a seat at the table for
Yeah.
planning discussions. So that's my selfish
Yes,
little
exactly.
wiggle room into the table.
I think there are so many things that affect this, but the two main things that stand out to me, one is analytics and reporting, and that kind of goes back to our previous question. And the second one is efficiency.
Mm.
So digging a little bit deeper into both of them, I think providing like detailed analytics and reporting on performance of marketing campaigns, and being able to get that at a very granular level, right? So maybe on like the campaign ad or even like the copy level,
Hmm.
it is really important, right? Because that helps us make decisions of which ads are working well, like in the paid realm, what copy
Hmm.
is working well, etc. Um, Paid ROI is also a huge one. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of people I see fail to track that properly or accurately.
Hmm.
And so like an attribution model for that is also really important. And the last one for analytics and reporting, I think forecasting is super important, right? Being
Hmm.
able to look at historical data and also current trends to help with future forecasting.
Hmm.
Um, so like we can adjust budget needs or plans, right? Just to make sure that like whatever we're investing is aligned with like the business expectations. That's analytics and reporting for me.
Hmm.
On the efficiency side, working at like an automation company, it's so important for us to
Yes.
kind of drink our own champagne.
Yes.
So, you know, we've built like thousands of automations to kind of like help streamline like repetitive tasks. And
Hmm.
that's important, right? Because it reduces like manual efforts and it frees up time for like more high impact activities.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I talk about efficiency, it can range from anything across like the MarTech stack. A
Hmm.
couple of examples is like lead routing, right? Like we have a very strenuous lead routing where any inbound demo request that comes in, we have our SDRs follow up within 5 minutes and is
Wow.
touched through our systems and updated end to end.
Hmm.
Um, that's just a simple thing of like looking at like your current funnel, how to make that as efficient as possible and optimizing that process. And really without spending extra dollars and just like, more resources on this particular funnel, like it can yield you like very high results.
When you're spending dollars, it's telling you a story with data, and you want to make sure the dollars you spend line up with the strategic initiatives you have on your budget,
Hmm.
similar to the way we run campaigns, right? So to me, I always think I love working on my company's budget. I find it to be very interesting. it becomes a challenge of how nuanced you want to get into the storytelling of what you spent and what the outcomes are. And how, like, again, not going too in the weeds, but that right
Mhm.
sort of piece. I do think marketing operations people have it in them to be able to have those conversations with finance. I really think we are able to understand data. It's just a different type of data. And we also ask a lot of the right questions when it comes to what are you trying to get as an end result from what we're programming, right? So like if we were doing a nurture campaign or we're trying to build this lead generation program and we're trying to increase X, all of that is leading to something. Now, I think the only thing we're missing if we're not touching the budget was how much money did we put into that initiative to get that outcome?
Mhm.
And then it's math. It's so if you had a baseline of every time we ran this in the past, we had X number of people. When we added, this percentage of dollars on top of it, the new outcome was this amount of people. You can see that return on investment and if it's worth to keep putting those dollars into it. If the marketing ops team already is doing the reporting, it's a natural fit to add in the managing and helping with the budget.
Exactly. And if you want to be more strategic, stay close to the dollars. That's really what I found.
Yeah, I mean, finance is amazing because they know it's an investment and they're always going to ask you to spend less. They're always going to
Yeah.
push you to cut less. But if you're able to tell the narrative that when we invest, we grew more, they're not going to push back as much. They have the hard job of making sure organizations are profitable and that they are seeing
Yeah.
growth and that they're seeing returns. And I think it's challenging with marketing because we are the arts and science department.
Yes.
So, but the more we can help, and I think the marketing ops folks can help get that narrative together.
So for me, I think the marketing operations was going to help the team, especially the marketing leader, understand like which type of campaigns are particularly working for creating, new opportunities, and
Mhm.
and then basically help also nurture existing opportunities and create new opportunities. Right? Like I look at it from a timestamp perspective using the bow tie. So there's
Mhm.
different types of engagement, high engagement type of activities that will really, or campaigns that you can create, either it's activities or campaigns. However you engage with that individual or that buying group is really how you want to commodify, or like how you really want to put either a price into it, right? So if
Mhm.
I think of it like key milestones in the
Mhm.
buying journey, and then what campaigns are going to catalyst the increase in sales activity to get it to the next phase. And then I like to put campaigns or see different client activities that they do and like to score it. So and then look at the different patterns that happen between those three types of those three type of milestones, right? What type of campaigns are happening prior, and look at
Mhm.
all the closed won opportunities in the past. What campaigns are consistent across the board, and you want to kind of cluster those type of campaigns in those
Mhm.
three different prongs to see what type of campaigns they're participating in and engaging
Mhm.
with, and also who they're engaging with in your team. So for me,
Mhm.
that's how I look at it in a very granular perspective, so I can
Mhm.
make assumptions based on the patterns that I'm seeing. Like I don't really care for like, oh, yes, I'm going to look at the, how much value they're bringing into the company, but for me I look at it from a granular perspective because I want more, like if I want to increase more leads to opportunities, I'm looking at a
Mhm.
bigger net that I want to catch, right? I think a lot of people look at very specific number criteria, but I look
Mhm.
at it like different high touch points and also different client and activity relationships that they do. So I'm looking at the
Mhm.
activity of engagement, I'm looking at campaigns, and I'm looking at three distinct milestones that people engage with my company on. And to me, that's how I'm able to help like my chief get a better
Yeah.
idea of what's working and what's not working.
Well, since marketing operations teams are so often the owners of the technology responsible for tracking the performance, the key is making sure that every campaign that you're running, you are clearly aligned with your marketers and your leadership on what success looks like for those programs and how you're tracking and measuring that. And being able to put that against the dollars being spent on the programs. Being able to see that piece of it and knowing, hey, for this particular event, program type, channel, whatever the case may be, success is X. This is our goal. Then you look at, this is how much we spent. What did it take to get us from initial investment to the success point? Where are we seeing the ROI on that? What opportunities did we invest? And marketing operations is responsible for that downstream data flow to be able to have that measurement. Then when you're able to see that and say, you know, either you want to isolate it as a channel and look at things like live events versus webinars, or paid advertising coming from Google versus Bing versus your ABM platform, right? You want to break out these pieces. You're able to do that and be able to make comparisons and say, okay, this was our goal. Where are we seeing either lower cost per acquisition or lower cost per success for the dollars that we're spending? The piece that you want to look at beyond that is your long-term measurement. So are you looking at pipeline generation? Are you looking at closed won? And being able to kind of peel that back and say, you know, which programs reach which goal. So if the new goal is new name generation, that's going to be a different set of goals than one where the goal is pipeline creation or discovery calls. So looking at that goal and being able to peel back that piece of it as well. Different program types are going to have different goals. And so that's where marketing operations, understanding the data, the why, the program types, the successes, are really the ones that are able to help tell that story and make sure that those pieces are correct. Were those things tracked appropriately? Were they tagged appropriately? Are they being reported on appropriately? And then delivering that information back to stakeholders and say, hey, we sat and we analyzed all of these campaigns. We saw some really great performance in this certain subset of webinars to this audience. That's a great place to consider investing additional funds. Same if you're looking at, you know, a trade show that you attended and you're comparing it to another trade show with a similar audience, but maybe in a different location. Hey, you know, maybe people travel to a certain place better, or maybe you have different audiences that attend those events and go on to qualify at different rates. Maybe that adjusts what audience you go after and where you continue to invest, or maybe you invest more in one trade show and have a smaller footprint at another as you start to balance that out. But those are the decisions when you look at those side by side. You can use that information to figure out where you want to either invest more or peel back investment, and potentially open up room for experimentation in areas of, you know, hey, we saw something really good here. Let's go try something here too, and shift how you're spending your dollars to see where you can maximize that even further.
I think a lot of times that data and insights, just based on, you know, being the people that really power how we track, can provide marketing leaders that information that I think is so critical to knowing what is working and what's not working.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. I would say the second thing is with tech integrations. And I know this is going to sound kind of mean, but you know, a lot of times MOPS, we can automate things like that may have been done by a person. And
Yes.
I have an example of this where I worked at a company once where we had this particular leads program, and there was literally a guy whose sole job was to pull this this data from some homegrown system, of course, but of all of these potential leads, that was then put in a spreadsheet and given to someone else, who then took that and, you know, scrubbed it, whatever, uploads to Salesforce. And, you know, as a marketing ops person, I'm just thinking there's probably a way to automate this and get rid of the middle people that are manually doing this work. And I think that's, just another way that you can help marketing leaders, is looking for those opportunities where you can automate something and maybe not get rid of the person, but use that person for something else other than.
Yes, free them up to do something more meaningful.
Yes. And the third way is with providing guidance on strategy, because I've worked with a lot of stakeholders that are just great, phenomenal, great business leaders, great marketing people, but sometimes I've seen they might not know what they don't know when it comes to what are all the ways we could really use our stack to get the most out of it, or, drive more from it. And so that's another opportunity, I think, as marketing ops professionals and leaders, being able to see, hey, well, for example, let's just say we typically always do like, I don't know, like these content downloads. I remember this one company, this business unit loved to do white papers, case studies, whatever. And so, and it was like rinse and repeat every time. It was like, hey, Brittany, we got this case study. We're gonna, we want to email this list of people, whatever. And, it was very one and done. And the strategic guidance I was able to provide is say, hey, instead of us doing these one-off PDFs sent to this list, what if we actually created more like a content hub where we can have this content live on our website, and we can drive people to it not only from email, but we can also use SEO, have some sort of organic search strategy as well, so that we're getting the most out of all of this. We're not spending all this time and effort building content, which can be expensive. If you're, doing research, you have people writing, you got your designers, all of these things, that it's like, all right, one PDF, we're done. Like, what a waste. So I think that's the third way, is, providing that strategic guidance as well. And because you, as the marketing ops person, all of the tools, or you should, and the ways that you can best use your stack.